Hello and a very good afternoon to you. Welcome to your lunchtime news bulletin live on Mtv Sports. I'm Shahin Rampati. Let's start off with a look at your headlines. Government says that construction activities on the Northern Expressway will begin before the end of the year. Port development instructors in the central province engage in a demonstration. And the US Vice President says that there is no doubt that the Syrian regime used chemical weapons. Now for those stories in detail, President Mahinda Rajapaksa, who took part in an official 3-day tour to Belarus, arrived in the island this morning. During the tour, President Mahinda Rajapaksa met with a number of high-ranking officials, including the Belarusian President as well as the Belarusian Prime Minister, and engaged in bilateral discussions. According to Presidential Media Coordinating Secretary Vijayananda Herath, discussions held during the tour were mainly aimed at boosting bilateral relations. He added that several key agreements were also signed during this tour. Now, according to the police, 2 suspects who broke into the house of journalist Mandana Ismail Abe Vikrama are being questioned under detention orders. Police media spokesperson SP Buddhagusiri Vardhana noted that interrogation of the suspects began after they were taken to the Bambalapitiya police. 2 more suspects who were arrested in connection to the break-in are currently receiving treatment at the National Hospital. 4 individuals connected to the break-in that occurred during the early hours of Saturday have been arrested by the police. 1 suspect died in police fire. The police media spokesperson noted that 3 police officers who were injured when apprehending the suspects were transferred from the National Hospital to the police hospital. Meanwhile, making headlines this afternoon, Project Minister of Highways Nirmala Kothalawala says that construction activities on the Northern Expressway will begin before the end of this year. Now, he noted that the expressway will be constructed under 3 phases.
This was earlier planned to be the Colombo-Kandy road. However, the President instructed us to ensure that this expressway connects the central province and the north of the country. We are formulating our plans to ensure that this serves the eastern province as well. Thereby, the expressway will be constructed from Inderamulla in Kampaha to Mirigama, Mirigama to Kurunagala, and Kurunagala to Katugastara. We have been instructed to commence construction immediately. Thereby, the Ministry of Ports and Highways has already begun taking the necessary steps to begin construction activities. A program to raise awareness levels amongst preschool teachers in the Bibila, Madupa and Madagama divisional secretariats was held at the Bibila Cultural Centre yesterday. Now, the event, which was organized in line with World Children's Day, was held under the auspices of the Chief Minister of the Over Province, Shashendra Rajapaksa. When creating policies, I cannot simply approve a document drawn up by teachers according to their likings. There is a law in this country. There are traditions in this country. There is an order to everything that I should do. I can present a policy only when it has passed through the necessary channels, such as the courts and legal departments. Senior Minister of Good Governance and Infrastructure Facilities Ratnasiri Vikramanayake says that development without proper values is pointless. A special function was held yesterday to distribute school equipment to children from selected low-income families in the Pokonavita area in Horana. The event was organized by the Samurdhi Bank of Pokonavita. Our country is moving towards development. However, on the other hand, we have suffered a loss when it comes to our customs and traditions. How can we speak of development when the public loses their humanity and when we lose our identity? We cannot call it development then. The distribution of polling cards for the Northern, Northwestern and Central Provincial Council elections is to commence today. The Election Secretariat noted that the 8th of September has been declared as a special distribution day for the ballot papers. Additional Elections Commissioner R.M.A.L. Ratnayake said that the distribution of the polling cards will conclude on the 13th of September. 4,358,263 registered voters are due to cast their ballot during the elections that will be held on the 21st of September. 714,488 voters have registered from the Northern Province, while 1,889,550 voters are due to cast their votes from the Central Province. The total number of registered votes in the Northwestern Province stands at 1,754,218.
Also making headlines this afternoon, Central Province Poultry Development instructors engaged in a protest today. The protest was staged opposite the Director's Office of the Department of Animal Production and Health in Gatembe, Peradeniya. The Central Province Poultry Development instructors engaged in the protest after applying for sick leave. The protesters called on officials to stop the Director of the Department of Animal Production and Health in Peradeniya from recruiting artificial animal breeders according to his whims and to implement the framework laid out by the Provincial Council. Chairman of the Central Province Poultry Development Instructors, W.G.M. Bandara, noted that they are scheduled to hand over a letter in this regard to the Governor of the Central Province. The Customs Department notes that they have launched a broad investigation into an incident where several airmail goods had been released from the Central Postal Exchange without the necessary excise duties being charged. Director General of Customs Jagat Vijayveer noted that he expects to obtain a report from the Postmaster General in this regard. Now, the airmail goods that had been released in this manner had originated from Korea and was taken into the custody of the police yesterday. Now moving overseas, US Vice President Joe Biden says that there is no doubt that the Syrian regime used chemical weapons against its own people in an attack last week.
There is no doubt who is responsible for this heinous use of chemical weapons in Syria. The Syrian regime. For we know that the Syrian regime are the only ones who have the weapons, have used chemical weapons multiple times in the past, have the means of delivering those weapons. And instead of allowing UN inspectors immediate access, the government has repeatedly shelled the sites of the attack and blocked the investigation for 5 days. The President believes, and I believe, that those who use chemical weapons against defenseless men, women, and children should and must be held accountable.
Meanwhile, as Western nations contemplate their next move, Syrian rebel forces claim that they have gained ground in northern Syria.
Rebel forces unleashed their firepower in northern Syria. They target a town in Aleppo province that sits on the government supply route connecting the northern province to central parts of the country. They make victory signs as they survey a damaged building in an assault that killed more than 50 pro-government fighters. Rights groups say the rebel gang will leave government forces besieged in Aleppo province. New hampers options for President Bashar al-Assad's forces for counterattacks against rebel-held territory in northern Syria along the Turkish border. The video, which cannot be independently verified by Reuters, shows a room full of weapons now in rebel hands. Western powers are now considering action against the Syrian state, following the apparent use of chemical weapons on civilians last week. The government denies any such use. The conflict in Syria began more than 2 years ago and has claimed the lives of at least 100,000 people. While each side has won battles in the fight, there are few signs of an endgame in the war.
Russia's aircraft makers took center stage on the first day of a major air show near Moscow with a clutch of deals signed while Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev pledged to make the industry more internationally competitive.
The sales, mainly to Russian buyers, showed that a Kremlin-backed drive to sell aircraft worth $250 billion by 2025 will be tough as the flagship Superjet 100 project struggles to gain traction. Russia needs to replace hundreds of planes as rising passenger numbers drive higher demand, and many orders are set to go to overseas plane makers. Boeing says it expects air carriers in Russia and the former Soviet states to take delivery of 1,170 planes over the next 20 years at a cost of $140 billion. Airbus, which was able to strike a cooperation deal with Russian industrial and defense conglomerate Rostec, also has buoyant growth forecasts for 2012 through 2031.
honoring those who dedicate their lives to the noble cause of serving those in need. Nominations are now being accepted. If you know of such selfless individuals, send in your nominations without delay. Call us on 0716 556 556 or log on to www.vawards.lk. Send in your nominations to V Awards Secretariat, care of UN Volunteers 202-204, Bauddha Lokamavata, Colombo 7.
So starting off sports with tennis news, top seed Novak Djokovic of Serbia lived up to his ranking by playing to near perfection in overwhelming Lithuanian Rikardas Berankis 6-1, 6-2, 6-2 in his opening match at the US Open in New York. The world number one committed only 2 unforced errors before getting a little sloppy toward the end of the third set, finishing with 9 miscues against 28 winners, including 10 aces. Djokovic, who buried ground strokes from both wings into the corners with 112th ranked Berankis, looked on helplessly, also fended off 7 of 8 break points held by the Lithuanian. The 26-year-old Serb will play Germany's Benjamin Becker, a 6-3, 3-6, 6-3, 6-4 winner over Lokos Rozol of the Czech Republic in the second round. Former champion Sam Stosur was bundled out of the US Open by American teenager Victoria Duval. The 11-seeded Australian was defeated 5-7, 6-4, 6-4 by the 17-year-old qualifier in the first major upset of the women's event.
2 sets to 1, 5-7, 6-4, 6-4.
In the last match of the night session, women's second seed Victoria Azarenka of Belarus won 6-love, 6-love against Zina Fiesemeyer of Germany. Azarenka, seeking her second Grand Slam title of the year after winning in Australia, had to fight hard against the 21-year-old German, despite the apparent ease shown by the scoreline. Despite the German's continued efforts, she was unable to win a game with Azarenka, completing her win in 65 minutes. Now on to some football news. Arsenal, as expected, cruised into the Champions League group stage for the 16th time in a row yesterday, beating Fenerbahce 2-0 at the Emirates Stadium to complete a 5-0 aggregate win, and manager Arsene Wenger said they will get even better. Now Arsenal are one of only 3 clubs, including Manchester United and Real Madrid, to have qualified for every Champions League competition since 1997.
We completed the job, and we had some problems to get into the pace of the game, but overall, especially in the second half, we controlled the game and did a professional job. It was not a very maybe exciting game, but we did what we had to do.
Birkaç hafta sonrasında oynasaydık eğer.
I wish to congratulate our opponents and wish them luck in the Champions League. If we had played in a couple of weeks' time, I think we would see a better Fenerbahce than we did today. We created some chances in the game, but we had a difficult score from the first game. Obviously, we have to perform better and for longer. We have some league games and some European games ahead of us, and we'll see a better Fenerbahce in a couple of weeks' time, I think. At Fenerbahce, we try to play different systems, and we will continue to work towards that.
Bizde oynayacağımız hem lig hem de Avrupa.
And that's your lunchtime news bulletin. Thank you very much for watching. For News First, I'm Shanju Rampati. Goodbye and take care.
Hotline 0114-896-896. www.newsfirst.lk. Feedback at